Hello and welcome to this week's Talent Talks. As you know, this series of webinars and podcasts is an attempt to get behind the scenes of the world of work, to find out about the options open to young people when making those important decisions at the beginning of their careers. We talk to employers and representatives of a wide range of industries across the country. And today I'm delighted to welcome Jade Pearson from Severn Trent. So Jade, hello and welcome.
Hello.
So Severn Trent, huge organisation. I mean, I grew up in Gloucester, so I was used to seeing the name everywhere. But maybe you could begin by telling us a bit about Severn Trent, because it's a huge organisation that does so many things, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's about 7,000 of us Severn Trenters across the West Midlands predominantly. And we're a water and wastewater service provider. So effectively, anybody in our region that drinks water, uses water in their homes or about their day-to-day business, we make sure that their drinking water is good quality and reaches their homes. And we also take their wastewater away. So anytime something goes down your drain or gets flushed down the loo, then that comes back into our network to process and then put back into the rivers once it's been cleaned and treated.
And it's not just homes, of course, it's businesses as well, which I guess must be a fairly large part of your customer base.
It is, yeah. So overall, I think we've got around 8 million customers across our household and non-household. So yeah, as well as homes across our region, we also service the businesses too.
And how big is the region? Because I know that as well as the kind of the areas around the Severn and the Trent, you also go into Wales as well from memory, don't you?
We do, yeah. So I think we go all the way up to Scunthorpe is our most northerly point, and then we go across into Wales. So we actually acquired what was Dee Valley Water back in 2017, and then it was renamed Hafran Dyfrdwy. So that's just tested my pronunciation there. Sorry to any Welsh listeners that I've just offended. I did my best.
It was very good.
Thank you. But Hafran Dyfrdwy is named after the rivers there, so it means 70 in Welsh. So we also service our Welsh customers in and around that region too.
So a huge area, and I guess then you have offices, you have centres all over that massive part of the country.
Yeah, we do. Our biggest hubs are across Coventry, Birmingham, Leicester, Warwickshire, but we also have operational depots and sites right across our patch. So in every corner of our region, you'll find a Severn Trent sign and a Severn Trent water treatment site or a waste treatment site lurking somewhere.
And I can think one of the things that's always really interesting about organisations like Severn Trent is they're very well known for the thing that we all see, you know, the water and the waste elements. But actually the skills and the complexities and the organisational kind of competence that goes behind that just must be massive.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that, in all honesty, we struggle with most is how do we get across to individuals out there that are looking for their first job or their next job, all of the wonderful careers that exist across the water industry. I think typically people think of water and waste and think of maybe those hands-on roles that we absolutely need, but there's a wealth of soft skill roles that also exist across our organisation and routes into all different professions. So I often kind of say to people, if you think of any occupation that a large organisation needs, we need it in the water industry too. So things like finance, HR, technology, engineering, construction, all of those things that people probably ordinarily wouldn't relate to the water industry, we have those opportunities too.
Well, let's start with you. I mean, so you've been part of the team for some time. You're HR. What is it that kind of drew you to Severn Trent and the role that you've got at the moment?
Yeah, so the water industry was a real unknown to me. I was like many of our customers who didn't really interact with Severn Trent as an organisation other than to pay my bill every year. And it was around the time actually where the industry was going through some quite interesting and significant changes. So market competition was being introduced for non-household customers. So businesses were able for the first time to choose who they wanted their water and wastewater service provider to be. And I just thought, wow, that must be an industry that's going through quite a lot of transformation, and what an exciting time to work for an industry like that. So that was really what kind of got me through the door. And I must admit, going back to that kind of question that you just asked me about all of the different careers and skills, my first couple of months at Severn Trent, I got the opportunity to see lots of different teams, meet lots of different people, and I was genuinely blown away by the different skill sets, the type of capabilities, and just the different level of roles that are available. So even 7.5 years into my career at Severn Trent, I'm still meeting people and amazed by what they do to make our business run.
And I think that's one of those great things about large organisations, is the ability to meet and find out and experience all sorts of different jobs, different roles in different parts of the country.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the lovely things about Severn Trent is it's a large organisation. So as I said, there are 7,000 of us, but it genuinely feels like a family. People are connected, the network is brilliant, and it gives you that opportunity to really understand the different environments and nature of environments that people can work in. So we've got lots of people like me who work in an office predominantly, and then we've got thousands and thousands of people that are out at our water treatment sites, at our waste sites, and actually on the road quite a lot, spotting and fixing leaks on our network. So the diversity and the range of roles and careers that are available is really quite broad as well.
So let's start to explore some of those diverse roles. Now, you obviously recruit into a number of different areas within the business, and you do it across apprenticeships, graduates, and so on. So what are the main areas you look to recruit in for school leavers and knowers at a young age?
Yeah, so we've been recruiting based on strengths for a while. So rather than looking for qualifications or things that people have already done, we look for the potential that people can bring into our organisation. And that's really important for school leavers and university leavers, because quite often you don't have any practical work experience behind you. So we're looking for 7 key things, really. And I won't list them all. You can find the information on our website, but we're looking for things that will help people to be a success at Severn Trent effectively. So things like, how good at building relationships with your colleagues and other people are you? What's your drive to deliver like? What level of customer service or, drive to deliver a great customer service have you got? And we look for those 7 things through our selection process. And that's what we use to select and choose the people that are successful onto our programmes.
I mean, it's one of those things that there's a lot of talk about within the recruitment industry about strengths-based approach to interviewing. But do you find that there's much of a kind of a discrepancy between that and the way that young people are prepared in school, for example, to apply to your roles?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the other things that me and my team do is actually go out into schools, because we find that not always do students have the skills that they need to successfully transition out of education and into the world of work for the first time. So we're trying to step into that space, as I know a number of other organisations are doing, to really help students to, I guess, set themselves up for success, and for businesses for it not to be so much of a burden or a learning curve for students to step into the world of work for the very first time. So things that we all take for granted that we had to learn and do for the first time, but we just assume everyone has that in their toolkit and their professional skill set. So really quite basic and core skill sets like presentation skills, time management, prioritization, business etiquette, effective time management, all of those things that we know we need to just be able to do our jobs and do them well. We help to develop those skills in students whilst they're still at school, college or university.
And that's a big commitment. So you're able to actually get out into schools and help deliver some of this yourself, are you?
Yeah, definitely. And with the launch of our academy, so we just built a purpose-built training facility down the road in Coventry, Hawksley Park, And as part of our offer, we've just committed to delivering 100,000 hours employability sessions for our community. So there's some great resource available that we can kind of provide to people. It's a blend of online learning, practical sessions, one-to-one tutorials and classroom training that we really want to kind of connect with not just students, but anyone across our region that might be struggling to get into work or wants to get a better job or is looking to just shine that little bit brighter at work and improve their kind of prospects for future career progression. So we're really quite passionate about that as an organisation.
Yeah, that's an amazing offer. It's a huge commitment. Do you think that the skills that are needed in the world of work, are you seeing them change? I think there's a lot of talk around things like the fourth industrial revolution and so on. Do you notice in the last 7 years there is actually kind of a move towards a different skill set that is required to be successful within Severn Trent?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I don't think we're any different to any other organisation is that use and that reliance on data and insights. So we're definitely seeing that come out and the need for that being greater and greater as we move forward. Our water treatment works and waste treatment works, we're looking at how we can automate them and make them more kind of real-time remote monitoring, which means that our operators require different skill sets to maybe how we've traditionally run our site. So yeah, definitely we are seeing trends and moves towards that greater insight for data and the ability to not just manage data, but interpret data, understand data, interrogate data to drive better decision making and better performance.
And it's fascinating to me how that really great description you've just given actually applies whether you're working in engineering, in HR, in finance, or one of the kind of the operational functions as well, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. It spans right across our organisation. It's not just those on the front line. It's not just those working in finance. Everybody working at Severn Trent will have to deal and manage with data. And that's something that we're definitely looking at how we can help upskill and continue to grow that capability for ourselves and for the organisation overall.
So there you go, data management, not necessarily a thing you'd put alongside water, but actually the two are 100% aligned these days.
Definitely, couldn't agree more.
So, okay, let's think about then the ways in Severn Trent. I know you take on graduates, you take on apprenticeships. What are the sorts of roles that young people have the opportunity to join you in?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been quite passionate about over the last couple of years is really expanding the breadth of new talent opportunities that we're creating and offering across Severn Trent. So we've always offered apprenticeships in our traditional apprenticeship programme, so those operational maintenance critical programmes. We've been running those for many years in different guises. Over the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've been expanding that into some of our enabling support and professional functions. So we've got apprentices that are studying to become qualified solicitors. We've got apprentices that are on quantity surveyor programs. We've got apprentices that are learning how to be digital engineers, cybersecurity specialists. You name it, we've probably got it at Severn Trent. And it's great to be able to provide those entry-level routes into our organisation, because it can be really hard breaking into some of those professions, particularly when you get to a certain level of your career. So for us to be able to create that opportunity and, provide the opportunity for people to be able to earn a living, earn a salary whilst they're learning such brilliant skills, I just think is fantastic. I mean, if I had my time again, I would definitely do an apprenticeship.
It's really interesting to hear you say that. I mean, I think there's still a misconception about apprenticeships, but actually the ability to leave school and, for example, get an apprenticeship in something like cybersecurity, you are just going to be so much more current because you are dealing from day one with real world threats, real world environments. I mean, I get incredibly passionate about it because I don't think many parents or teachers understand that in some cases it is better than going to university.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. We've got apprentices that are 21 years old that can afford to buy their own their first house and have kind of 4 years worth of incredible skills and experience behind them versus their counterparts that are just leaving university with no practical experience and bucket loads of debt. So I wholeheartedly believe in apprenticeships as an equal and as valuable route to university.
And that's a great way of putting it, isn't it? Because they are just different. For some people, actually going to university is the right thing. You get that qualification, you then join the workforce at a different stage of life.
Yeah, definitely. So that's why we run a mix of new talent early careers programs. We've got our graduate programs and we've also got our apprenticeship programs, because both provide a valuable route into our organisation. I don't think one is more valuable than the other, and it really comes down to the way that people prefer to learn. Some people would much prefer to go to university and have a more traditional academic route into the world of work. Others are much more practical learners, and the apprenticeship and potentially the T-level routes that are coming out of the government and the FE sector would be a much more relevant route to them. So it really comes down to personal preference. I think the thing that we need to do alongside government and other organisations is to really raise the profile and give people the information so that they can genuinely make an informed choice about what's the right route for them post GCSE. Because we still see now, talking to students and schools, that the university and the traditional academic route is definitely one that's still more favoured, I think, and is pushed probably harder than some of those other technical routes that are available.
Yeah, I think it's certainly more understood, isn't it, by parents as well as by teachers. And I think the UCAS process is it's not easy, but it's a structured approach that you can get an entire year group to follow, whereas apprenticeships, it's a bit more complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we've kind of learned, and why we want to partner with schools and students across our region much earlier, so that we as an employer can really showcase the progression and the career routes that apprenticeships can bring to people. It's all about education, isn't it? When you've got some information and some data and some insight, you can make a more informed decision. We were talking about data earlier, but this is just a real life example. The more data, the more exposure, the more options that are presented to you, the better your choice can be. And I think that's something that we're really passionate about. And how do we, I think you mentioned it earlier, David, how do we help teachers, career leaders, parents to be more informed themselves as well? Because we've definitely seen that they have a real influence over the decisions that students make around their kind of career trajectory and the way that they get to that.
So if I'm a careers leader listening to this, what can I do to help my students understand about careers in Severn Trent?
I think it would be curious for a start. So we love to help people understand the world of water and the careers that are available there. As I said earlier, we've got a brilliant resource available. We've got bite-sized toolkits and sessions that we can run either remotely, virtually, or face-to-face in schools. We've got some brilliant inspirational role models that we can come and get in front of the students, because we know that people need to be relatable, and that's one of the things that we've learned in our campaigns over the last couple of years. So our apprentices and our graduates are brilliant advocates, and will be able to give that level of kind of insight and detail that perhaps me and some of my members of my team just can't. And they're also, the students are then willing to ask those questions that they really want answers to, but might be a little bit more afraid to ask somebody like me.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? I think we're both enterprise advisors, aren't we? So we're used to going to schools. And, being a kind of 40 and a bit bloke, I always worry about being relatable to young people who actually probably need to meet those 21, 22-year-olds who can tell them the right story and use the right language.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's something about that kind of role model aspect as well. Seeing and hearing from people that look and sound like you, it just gives that little spark inside you that kind of goes, oh, actually, if somebody like me can do a job like that, then so can I. And just those like magic moments, I think if we could kind of multiply that across Severn Trent and then across other organisations like us, I think we could just drive such brilliant positive impact.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think the other thing that's quite interesting when you have those conversations is around progression. So quite often we get very focused on that applying for this job, but actually that first job is probably not going to last more than a couple of years. It's the where you could go afterwards that becomes really quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something else that we've tried to show in our attraction and selection campaigns over the last 18 months. One of the best events that we ran was actually a Women in Water campaign, where we held online events because it was right in the middle of lockdown and COVID, so we couldn't do anything face to face. But we had a real range of individuals at different stages of their career that were talking to the students. So we had people that were only a matter of months into their apprenticeship scheme, so they could share their experience of what it's been like so far, what interested them about applying to that particular programme and to us particularly as an organisation. We had first line managers that joined us through kind of new talent routes or other routes that were able to share where they were at in their career and how they'd got there. And then we had some really senior managers who were able to reflect right the way back through their career history and their career kind of learnings. And just having that variety of people at different stages of their career, I think was really quite powerful.
Yeah, 100%. And again, those stories that show that actually you can't expect when you're 16, 17, 18 to know exactly where you want to go. But you know what? That's all right. Your career will evolve, won't it?
Exactly. I think my favourite term is the squiggly career. Like nobody's career, I think, just goes kind of upwards. We all do this, and that's okay. And that's where some of our best kind of learning comes from. And I think encouraging that at a young age and to say, it's okay not to know exactly where you need to get to. Those age-old interview questions that people used to ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? Who really knows? But that's okay. It's about continuing to be curious and continuing to challenge yourself and learn something new and different. And that will ultimately get you to somewhere bigger and better.
But it's really interesting because, again, it pulls back on the theme that we hear from so many large employers, which is actually what you're really looking for is the young person who wants to join you as an organisation, and what is their motivation, their passion for wanting to join you, because actually we all understand that they may not end up in the role they thought they were going to.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to the kind of strengths-based recruitment and looking for potential, that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for people that align to our company values and our company purpose. And that's really when the magic happens, when those two things kind of come in to alignment. You have people that genuinely want to do right for themselves and their performance in their role, for the organisation overall, and ultimately for our customers, because that's why we're here as an organisation, to serve those 8 million customers across our patch. How they do it and how they get to where they want to get to, we can help them with. But if they've got that passion and that interest and that enthusiasm, then the rest can be taught.
Brilliant. I suppose it would be remiss not to talk about the environment and sustainability, particularly this week as it's COP26. We ran some research over the last couple of weeks, actually, which shows that young people increasingly seem to be looking for roles where they can make a contribution to the environment and to sustainability. And I'm guessing that's absolutely in your sweet spot, isn't it? That is why you exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And with our kind of commitments on green recovery, so sometimes I think people see green recovery, the industrial green revolution, and think, well, how does a water company kind of fit and play into that? My goodness, like if anyone's thinking that the water industry doesn't have a role to play, then let me tell you, we absolutely do. And one of the things that's so lovely about the water industry and Severn Trent in particular is our ambition. So year on year, we're continuously challenging ourselves to do things more efficiently for our customers, more effectively, and to protect and improve. So not just protect our environment, but how do we make it even better? And the things that we're doing from a biodiversity perspective, working with farmers to reduce the number of chemicals that come into our water stream so that we can reduce the number of chemicals that we have to use in our treatment processes. How do we use bacteria rather than chemicals articles. I mean, look, I'm geeking out here. But there's genuinely fascinating projects that are going on right now across Severn Trent. And we've just committed to invest about £500 million in our green recovery plans. So we've got 4 key major programmes looking at improving bathing quality, reducing the potential for sewer flooding across our network. So yeah, we've got lots and lots of stuff, and environment and sustainability is something that just runs through the thread of Severn Trent. And it kind of goes back to that data piece that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. It doesn't matter what job or what team you work in Severn Trent, in some way you are helping to impact and improve sustainability in our environment. And that's another thing that we kind of look for in the people that we bring into our organisation.
Brilliant. So let's think then about this year's hiring. I think most schools are very focused on UCAS at the moment. My daughter is going to this, so I'm very, very interested in the whole thing, particularly this year. What do the timings look like for you? So when do you open and close the hiring for your apprentices?
Yeah, so our applications open just after Christmas. Early January. We tend to do a bit of a teaser campaign in the run up to Christmas. So across our kind of social media platforms and out and about with different careers events. So if people listening would like to kind of keep a track of that, I definitely recommend that you check our careers website out. And you follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So we're at Severn Trent and Severn Trent Life in particular. We really try and bring to life the roles that we've got on offer, the types of programmes that we've got on offer, and what it's really like to work at Severn Trent. Because one of the things that's really quite magical, once people join us, is to understand the beauty of our kind of culture. And everyone kind of raves about it, don't they? Everyone says that the people and their culture is the best part of their organisation. But there is genuinely something quite magical about Severn Trent, and it's our challenge to try and bottle that up and show people before they join us. So we're trying to do much more of that across some of our social streams. So I definitely recommend people keeping an eye on that over the coming year. But January is when our applications open.
And when do they close? When's the all-important deadline?
So end of March.
Great. So 3 months then to actually make sure that you understand what it is, to get the application forms in and prepare for the application process. And of course, applying for an apprenticeship is not the same as UCAS again. So what can people expect if they're successful through the application form?
Yeah, so we try not to make it too onerous. So it will be a short online application form. It's literally just to capture details about you and who you are as a candidate. Then you go straight into some of our online assessments. We try to make them really interactive, quite fun as much as selection processes can be. So you'll get lots of different interactive kind of elements. You'll be asked to answer multiple questions, watch videos, listen to voicemails, read emails, and then respond how you think you would in that particular scenario. For some of our programmes, because of the nature of the apprenticeship scheme or the graduate scheme, we might ask you to do a numerical reasoning test, but we have a practice hub available with our third-party provider. So I wouldn't want that to put anybody off. I know sometimes myself, I would have kind of shuddered at the thought of doing a numerical test online, but there are some great resources to help people kind of gain their confidence and get comfortable with them. And then if you pass all of the thresholds for that, then you'll be invited to our final assessments, and that's where we do an interview and a presentation exercise.
And that lot would finish roughly when? Summer sometime?
Yeah, so we aim to host our assessment centres kind of throughout April. Some might start towards the back end of March, and then we aim to offer kind of end of April going into early May.
Great. And I mean, we're coming out of COVID and pandemic, fingers crossed now. How has that had an impact on the way in which you run that assessment process? Because an awful lot of people, I guess, weren't able to travel to you for assessment centres in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually. I think we've done some self-reflection like many other organisations. So traditionally, we'd always brought people together face to face for interviews and assessment centres, and it was lockdown really that kind of threw us in, along with loads of other employers, on, well, how are we going to continue to do this in a completely different way? And over the last year, we've transferred everything to kind of remote assessment using Zoom. We did last year, and that worked really well. We had some really quite good feedback from the candidates themselves. We had some great feedback from our hiring managers, and it just reduced that level of kind of anxiety, that travel, and actually from a social mobility perspective, individuals that might not have even been able to afford to travel to attend the assessment centres. So actually it's helped us to open up to a completely different and diverse talent pool as well. So actually this year we are going to continue with remote assessment centres and see how it goes.
Brilliant. And I think a lot of other people, other organisations are looking at the same thing. We've learned an awful lot in the last 2 years, haven't we? And actually, it's challenged very helpfully some of the assumptions that used to be made about how you had to assess and engage with candidates.
Yeah, definitely. And I would just say, if anyone is worried about attending an assessment centre, we also will be running application and selection kind of masterclasses, because we know it can be really daunting. As much as we try to put people at ease, it can be quite uncomfortable. So we are trying to set everybody up for success, so that when they go into that final stage of our selection process, they're genuinely being evaluated on their full potential and their merit.
Brilliant. Jade, that's been a fantastic summary of both the organisation and everything you're doing at the moment to bring people into it. Thank you so much for joining me today on Talent Talks.
No problem at all. I'd love chatting to you, David.
Great. And thank you very much to you for joining us this week. Look forward to catching you next time.